Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's public hearing. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My name is Joe Vigliotti, and I am joined by my colleagues Mike Guerin, Susan Krebs, Tom Gordon, and Kenny Kyler, along with our County Attorney Tim Burke and other staff. Welcome to tonight's public hearing on the topic of deferrals. I'll keep this brief in the interest of time and the heart of tonight's purpose, which is hearing what you have to say. Mr. Burke will now give an overview of the public hearing and its course, and then we'll get right into it. Mr. Burke?
Good evening, everybody. As stated earlier, my name is Tim Burke. I'm the County Attorney. And the purpose of tonight's hearing is to solicit your input on 4 proposed ordinances deferring certain types of projects in the Freedom Designated Growth Area. Specifically, they are cluster subdivisions, planned commercial centers, retirement villages and retirement homes, and self-storage facilities. The purpose of this deferral is to allow the county to review the current ordinances addressing these projects, to ensure consistency with the Freedom Plan, and to ensure that these ordinance provisions currently advance the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. If the deferral is enacted, during the deferral, there will be a period of study and review and assessment to see if additional legislation is needed to address any problems that are perceived. The notice of the public hearing was advertised in the Carroll County Times on December 2nd and December 9th and has been posted on the county's website since then. Now, to ensure a respectful and productive evening and to make sure everybody who wishes to comment gets an opportunity, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes each, or less if you like. If you exceed your time, you'll be asked to complete your thought or your sentence. We encourage constructive feedback, and we ask that personal attacks or irrelevant comments be avoided tonight. And as required during the public hearing process, the board will not be addressing these matters tonight, but staff is available afterwards to answer any questions you may have. Your input is vital, and the commissioners will consider it in making any decisions regarding this process. If you wish to make a public comment tonight, please complete a card. They're outside, at the table outside, and they'll bring it up. If you have similar sentiments to your neighbor or same comments as others who've spoken before you, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you agree with what's been said, and that's it. Thank you all again on behalf of the county commissioners for being here on this cold night, and we appreciate your willingness to come and engage in an important dialogue. The process is we will call 5 names at a time. Please approach the microphone when we call your name. State your name and address, and you can provide your public comment then. So the first 5 that we're calling are Gary McGinnis, Joe Lynch, Nancy Lynch, and Audrey Novale or Navali. Come up to the closest microphone. We'll hear from Gary McGinnis first. Can you line up behind? We want 5 at a time so we keep this thing rolling, okay? So if you're one of the 5, thanks. Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burke. Good evening, Commissioner Krebs, fellow citizens, fellow commissioners. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to address you tonight. In the next 3 minutes, I want to share my perspective on the current state of Carroll County with focus on Eldersburg. While I have no personal stake in any of the proposed developments, I would like to state publicly that although I am a life member of the Sykesville Freedom District for over 50 years, my remarks this evening are personal and not from the department. I have resided in Eldersburg since approximately 1958 when my parents relocated here from Baltimore County. At that time, there were no shopping centers, few physicians, no traffic lights, no hospitals. Today, the community has greatly evolved, and all of us here know that the community is continuing to evolve. In the years past, Carroll County had an adequacy ordinance. There were standards for water, sewer, fire, schools, fire and EMS, and other issues required to keep the community safe and under control. To the Board of County Commissioners, I ask, what happened to the adequacy ordinance? Tonight, the community is asked to comment on the proposed developments. While fire and EMS may seem adequate today, I look at that with extreme caution. While standards today show adequacy, as I understand it, the ordinance was only to take into consideration one development at a time. We may look at development A and say it's okay, but what happens when you add communities A, B, C, and D, et cetera? A few years ago, the Board of Commissioners created the Carroll County Department of Fire and EMS as a county agency, a paid fire department. DFMS staffs with 6 personnel around the clock. Has 2 persons for each ambulance and a driver and officer for a piece of fire apparatus or rescue apparatus. In case of a house fire or other type of major fire, a minimum of 5 engines is dispatched with other apparatus. As you can quickly see, the paid staff is not going to be able to maintain and staff all those at one time. Fortunately, Sykesville still has a good cadre of volunteers to help staff the apparatus. The Sykesville community, like other fire departments in the Carroll County, depend on help or mutual aid from other counties to respond to emergencies. And the other departments must navigate through heavy traffic to reach Carroll County and through Carroll County. Traffic is very heavy these days during peak traffic. What will happen when we add thousands of new residents? How adequate will the Sykesville-Ellisburg community be when you take out one of the major bridges across Liberty Road? Carroll County does not have water supply of its own. It has to buy water. How adequate is that? We recently had a house fire, and one of the fire hydrants actually failed, and we had to set up an extra water supply. Commissioner Krebs stated in her announcement that there were ordinances pertaining to planning and zoning that were in conflict with others and had not been vetted publicly. I ask the commissioners to please correct this as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Nancy Lynch.
Hi, I'm Nancy Lynch, 6503 Carroll Highlands Road. When the county went through a comprehensive rezoning process in 2019, over 1,300 properties designations were changed, many from business, neighborhood, retail, BNR, to commercial. In zoning map 74, where we live, 30 properties, including the site of Carroll Highlands Self-Storage, were reclassified from BNR to C2, commercial medium density. Not one of the 30 properties was changed to C1, low density. All 30 were changed to C2, when C1 was a more natural successor to BNR. We've lived next door to this site for almost 40 years, and it has never been close to medium density commercial. The land has been used solely as residential for at least the last 10 to 12 years. Even the developer's own concept site plan lists it as its existing use as residential or vacant dwellings. This is the site of the proposed storage facility in pink, surrounded by houses. This is our house. This is a proposed future road, Ridenour Way. Part of this property belongs in the Carroll Highlands subdivision. This is the subdivision, consisting of 21 lots. There's a deed restriction, residential only. We filed a lawsuit against the first developer, and he withdrew because one of the lots that would support the storage facility on the corner still has a residential only deed restriction on it. 6 months later, another storage facility is proposed on part of this property. Between the two proposed storage facilities, we've attended 3 town halls, 2 public comment hearings, 2 parking variance hearings, 2 technical review meetings, 5 planning and zoning meetings, and over 10 commissioner meetings, arguing that a building like this belongs in an industrial zone and that it's too close to residential. And the connector road Ridenour Way still needs to be addressed. It's been on the books for 30 years. Thank you.
Hey, Jen, can you get me a seat so we can go? Let them know there's more seats. Get some more seats. I don't have to stand. There's seats over here. Just get some more chairs.
Hi, I'm Joe Lynch. Due to what my wife said, it's like we live together or something. So we seek a better relationship with our county leaders, more transparency on what goes into decisions and of what those are considered, why they're considered, where they're considered to go. After all, we are the people who those decisions will affect the most. Let us in on the conversation. We listen to you, our leadership. Please share your thought processes with us. We know why the decision to develop the Freedom was made because of the infrastructure already in place, water, sewer, roads. Other towns and cities incorporated and have their own form of government, mayor, city council, and their own planning and zoning department. These towns and cities now account for 31% of the county. These towns are not subject to the development from the county. Commissioners in the past these commissioners in the past voted substantial development away from the rest of the county and in the Freedom Growth area. So my issue is the same as my wife's. 1,000 properties were rezoned. We took around in our neighborhood we lived next to for a number of years. We found out it was the future site of a 50-foot, 102,000 square foot building known as a storage facility. Rezoning had taken our debt BNR from a small, quiet business, office space rental, et cetera, and deemed it to be a C2, which allows for the Hulk Hogan, as I call it, of development. If land use was taken into consideration, the friendlier C1 would have been the designation. Instead, our quiet neighborhood was slated for a cataclysmic change with this decision. We feel this decision was never right, and it's not just us. Anyone from near or far who's seen the shoehorning of this business among single-family homes sees it for what it is, a hasty, ill-conceived action. Developing with urgency is underway, with Freedom being the #1 landing spot for development. Residents want more voice in decisions on what comes here and where. We want citizens work group to collaborate with planning a project before it goes forward. That way, at least we'll have a chance to see the projects that may affect the quality of life, neighborhood, and property values impacts before they move forward. We support Commissioner Krebs' development proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. One moment, please. The next 5 are going to be Joe Dennis, Dawn Friend, Yvette Ripion, and Denise Lewis. And I learned this at Christmas Mass. If anybody has an empty seat next to them, please raise your hand.
There, over there.
So we have lots of room in here, everybody, if you want to sit down. Thank you, thank you. Now I'm going to take up a collection. Thank you. Go ahead, Audrey.
Audrey Novak, 6505 Carroll Highlands Road, Eldersburg. I'd like to piggyback on Nancy's comments. For more than 35 years, I have lived 2 lots away from the site of the proposed storage facility, and I've attended most of the meetings and hearings that she mentioned. When we made the argument that the storage facility belonged in industrial zones and not next to residences, it appeared that the county was taking us seriously. The Planning Commission met at least 3 months in a row to discuss the bulk requirements, that is, how tall the building could be next to residential. but their solution was not to do anything more than increase the side setback from 10 feet to 15 feet and create a sliding scale that would increase the setback 1 foot for every foot further away from a residential property. In other words, a 35-foot tall building was 15 feet away from residential property lines. And if you moved it back 15 feet to 30 feet away, then you could make it as tall as 50 feet. This is not a satisfactory solution for those of us who don't want a 50-foot tall building in our residential subdivision. We understand that another 4-story, almost 50-foot tall storage building is being proposed on Route 32 near London Town Boulevard. Another example of an unwanted business in Eldersburg, because we are a designated growth area that no one who lives here wants or needs. We know that there will be a push for grandfathering for proposed projects. We urge you commissioners to adhere to the Maryland late vesting ordinances that allow for zoning changes to be made until shovels are in the ground. This deferral is needed because the pace of development in our area is outrunning the infrastructure to support it. We feel our community is not being heard, despite the number of citizens who have attended town halls, planning and zoning, and commissioner meetings. The deferral will give everyone a chance to step back and consider what we really want for our community. Our online petition started 3 years ago, had over 2,000 signatures. We held several drive-up petition signing events on a Saturday and collected 250 signatures from residents who took the time to drive over to show their support. Most of them wanted to share their stories of why they moved into this area in the first place and their dismay over the out-of-control growth that has happened in recent years. We've been called the vocal minority, and we hope you listen to your constituents and not to developers or realtors and approve this deferral. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Good evening. I'm Joe Dennis. I'm the Deputy Chief of Sykesville Freedom District Fire Department. My comments represent the concerns regarding the current and future development plans and site plans of the fire EMS service for the Sykesville, Eldersburg Freedom District area. Currently, there are proposals to develop and construct 4 retirement communities, one of which is a mid-rise community, 2 cluster developments, a mixed-use community, and a 5-story storage facility in our primary response area. The potential impact on the delivery of fire and EMS services from this continued development is profound. The current lack of ordinances or code deficiencies that incorporate the guidance by the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, in addition to other accessibility considerations, need to be revised as these ordinances are paramount to the safety and the proposed communities. We urge the deferral of any further developments until specific ordinances, codes, and requirements address these deficiencies in design and development. Specifically, deficiencies that need to be addressed are unobstructed road width, which include those in site plans, allowable street parking, access redundancies, that means the entrances and exits to the developments, and generally unobstructed access to operational areas during emergencies. The lack of clear and specific requirements in planned developments directly and severely impacts the ability of the first responders and their apparatus to execute basic and fundamental life safety and property protection operations. We believe that it is of foremost importance to proactively provide and rigorously maintain adequate fire apparatus access with all current and future development projects within not only the Freedom District, but within the county. The strict adherence to and enforcement of established codes, particularly those set forth by the NFPA concerning fire lanes, road width, and building access, is not merely a requirement, but a critical foundation for ensuring the safety of our community and the operational effectiveness of the emergency responders. Specifically, fire apparatus requires 20-foot minimum clearance road width to enable the deployment of an aerial device. Additionally, the vertical clearance of at least 13 feet 6 inches is also needed. The minimum road width requirement also ensures and provides for the safe passage of one apparatus around another while others are operating at the scene. To cite something recently is the Nels Acres development that allows parking on each side of the street because of apparent driveway limitations, which narrows the 22-foot approximate road width to less than 7 feet, making it impossible for apparatus to move or deploy aerial devices and run hose lines. Simply making it an HOA enforcement issue is not a workable or reasonable solution. We encourage consideration of the ability to access high occupancy structures, including multi-level condos, apartment buildings, mixed-use developments, and mid and high-rise buildings from the front and rear with all-weather road surfaces to support the typical 25 to 40-ton weight of apparatus.
Can you, I apologize, I've let you go over a little bit, but
I-
please finish your thoughts.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't paying
No,
attention.
that's all right, but
In summary, we encourage the commissioners to delay and pause the planned developments under consideration until these life safety concerns are adequately addressed and documented in an approved form. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Dawn Friend. I'm a resident of Sykesville, a realtor, and I'm also a mother and a grandmother. I care deeply about the future of this community, not just today, but for the families who will live here long after this decision is made. I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposed deferral. First, I respectfully ask whether the county has conducted a comprehensive analysis of school enrollment growth. Specifically, has the county studied how much of that growth is actually attributable to new residential subdivisions versus other factors such as neighborhood turnover, multi-family housing development with municipal boundaries, or demographic shifts? If that analysis has not been completed, I urge the county to pause and table this ordinance until decisions can be based on complete and accurate data. We've seen this plan out before. In 2018, Montgomery County adopted a similar residential building deferral under comparable circumstances and quickly repealed it, learning it wasn't effective. Hopefully, Carroll County can learn from that experience rather than repeat it. Second, this deferral will increase the cost of developing housing, and these costs will not disappear. They will be passed directly to home buyers. At a time when housing affordability is already a major challenge for young families, seniors, and working residents, this ordinance risks making homeownership and downsizing options even more out of reach. Third, I ask whether the county has fully considered the administrative and financial burden this deferral will place on county staff, and has the county truly weighed the cost of defending this ordinance against inevitable legal challenges? Let's not forget what happened in early 2000s when Mount Airy did this. It cost us $26 million in damages from litigation against us. Again, I challenge we should learn from that experience and not repeat it. As both a professional in housing and a stakeholder in this community, I believe this deferral is a blunt instrument applied to a complex issue. We can and should pursue smarter, data-driven solutions that protect infrastructures, schools, affordability, and responsible growth without halting progress altogether. Thank you for your time and for your consideration, or for considering a more thoughtful path forward.
Good evening, Yvette Rippion, Stratton Mill Road. I am here to speak on behalf of Carroll County Realtors. Thank you for the opportunity. I am here today in opposition to the deferral ordinances, particularly as they apply to Carroll County here. While deferrals may be presented as a cautious or temporary solution, the reality is they directly worsen an already serious housing problem right here at home. Maryland is short nearly 250,000 housing units, and Carroll County is not immune to that shortage. When housing supply does not keep pace with demand, prices rise. We are seeing the effects of that every day. Young families who grew up here, work here, and want to raise their children here are being priced out. At the same time, longtime residents, people who have lived in this community for decades, are finding it increasingly difficult to downsize and stay. Deferral ordinances do not reduce demand, they simply restrict supply, and restricting supply makes housing less affordable. It's also important to recognize what deferrals mean for those who are already deep into the process. Developers in Carroll County have invested years of planning and millions of dollars following the very guidelines, zoning, and comprehensive plans this county put into place. They did what they were asked to do, only to now be told the rules may change. Moving the target after the work is done undermines the trust in the process and creates uncertainty that discourages future investment. Those added delays and uncertainties increase costs, financing costs, carrying costs, and material costs. Those costs do not disappear. They are passed directly on to the end buyer or renter, further reducing affordability for the very residents we're trying to protect. We all want smart, responsible growth, but responsible growth requires predictability, fairness, and follow-through. Deferring projects that already meet county standards does not preserve community. It limits opportunity and pushes people out. If Carroll County wants to remain a place where young families can put down roots and long-time residents can stay, we must allow housing that complies with our plans to move forward. I urge you to oppose deferral ordinances and support policies that address our housing needs without changing the rules midstream. Thank you.
I'm going to make one quick comment. Let's try to keep off of the booing. We want to be respectful of everybody here tonight. Everybody has the freedom and the opportunity to say something, so let's keep the unkind remarks and the unkind booing down, all right? No matter which side you're on.
Denise, one moment, please. The next 5 are going to be Chris Santafanti, Lynn Clark, Dennis Beard, handwriting, Dennis, Alex Adelsman, and Michael Rosenblatt. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Denise Lewis. I live and own a business in District 3. As an owner of a small local real estate brokerage, I see every day the wins and obstacles of the current market and the lack of available housing. I'm here to speak in opposition of the proposed deferral. I would like to remind the commissioners that we, realtors, work very hard to keep our finger on the pulse of the local real estate market, even providing the commissioners key housing statistics and consumer housing information on no less than a monthly basis. Several of our leadership members were invited to sit on the county's master plan workshop. The point being, we are very involved, very engaged beyond settlement day. We ask that you not only use our knowledge and our resources on the items we see eye to eye on, but also in cases such as this where we need to find a common ground. I as well am concerned about the possibility of lawsuit awards. Home and landowners remain the most vulnerable for tax hikes and fee increases to fund such outcomes. I thank you for the opportunity to speak openly.
Good evening. My name is Chris Santafanti, and I've been a resident of Freedom District for 53 years. I'm also a practicing realtor and in this community for over 35 years. Over the decades, I've seen many changes. Of course, you know that. I've always welcomed development, but I've also believed strongly in thoughtful and responsible growth. As you know, in 2018, the Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan was updated for the purpose of creating a development strategy that would enhance the quality of life in the Freedom District. Unfortunately, during the COVID period, key ordinances were drafted without meaningful community input. What followed was a lack of orderly and consistent planning, and today our community is facing the consequences. Traffic has increased significantly. Route 26 corridor between the First Bridge and Route 32 has become hazardous, just to mention that area. Turning left from any street without a traffic signal can feel like very life-threatening. These are not only conveniences, they are serious public safety concerns. This brings me to the current proposals for additional 55-plus housing in the Freedom District. I guess you're thinking, I'm sell, sell, sell. That's not how I feel about it. I want to be very clear. I am not opposed to more 55-plus communities. I am opposed to approving them without intelligent planning that prioritizes safety and infrastructure. Nels Acres is a clear example. Hundreds of residents rely on a single entrance that serves as the only exit for both phases of the community. Keep in mind that this community is located within the corridor that I referenced earlier, so turning left when exiting is treacherous. I also feel that the entire community was designed poorly. Even though the residents have space for 2 cars in their driveways, some are parking on the street, which makes access even more difficult for the emergency vehicles if they're needed. Additionally, visitors must park on the street, which adds to the problem. If a resident has a medical emergency and the street is blocked with vehicles, I can only imagine what disasters may happen. Therefore, I respectfully request that the county pause further development approvals in the Freedom District and allow the deferral currently being considered. And thank you, Susan Krebs, for working so very hard on that. This pause is not about stopping growth. It is about allowing time to reassess traffic patterns that require safer access points and ensure future developments aligns with the intent of the comprehensive plan. Responsible planning protects lives, preserves quality of life, and restores trust between the community and decision makers. I urge you to take the time to listen to the residents and address their concerns before moving forward. Can I see a show of hands who are in support of the deferral? Thank you for your time and consideration.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Alex Andelsman, and I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Building Industry Association and our members that live and work in Carroll County. We appreciate the opportunity to comment on Commissioner Krebs' proposal for moratoriums on development activity within the Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan area. MBIA strongly opposes this proposed moratorium because we believe that imposing a development moratorium would circumvent established zoning processes. This moratorium would also have serious economic consequences. Development in the Freedom area supports local jobs, housing options, and a stable tax base. Delaying or deferring projects will slow construction activity, increase costs, and send a message to investors and rating agencies that Carroll County's regulatory environment is unstable. That perception will negatively affect the county's bond rating and raise borrowing costs that are ultimately passed down to the taxpayers. I would also like to point out that there is no evidence of an emergency that would justify putting a moratorium on development projects in the Freedom District. A moratorium doesn't just affect our members, it affects all county residents, seniors looking to move to Carroll County, and small business owners. Several projects currently in review would provide retirement housing, neighborhood-scale retail, and improved infrastructure. Pausing these projects deprives residents of needed services and limits economic opportunity. Every delay adds cost and uncertainty to projects that have already been planned, vetted, and budgeted in accordance with county law. Passing this moratorium would discourage investment in Carroll County. Before I close, I'd like to thank the commissioners for taking the time to meet and have discussions with our members prior to tonight's public hearing. MBIA has the same common goal of responsible growth that benefits all of Carroll County's residents. Thank you for your time.
My name is Lynn Clark. I've lived in Sykesville, Eldersburg since 1975. There was not even a stoplight here, and when we got a blinking light, we were shocked. McDonald's was our first eat-out place, and I must say we were thrilled to have that. But little did I figure that this was going to be a metropolis like Randallstown and 140 in Westminster. I knew we would experience growth, but nothing like we have now. And now that I'm in a 55 and over community, Nels Acres, I'm stunned by the fact that I can hardly pull onto Liberty Road, especially if I'm turning left. We had a meeting with Ed Rothstein, who was one of the county commissioners at the time, and Andrew Radcliffe, the district engineer for the state of Maryland for District 7 in the fall of 2024. They were shocked to see that the room was packed with people here at Nels Acres, and more shocked that all but one of them raised their hands that they still drive. After that, Andrew said they would look further into the possibility of having a light put out at our intersection for our safety. Unfortunately, after several months, they determined it was not necessary at this time. They obviously were not sitting out during rush hour when it's really heavy traffic, as I'm sure you noticed when you came down here tonight, and can take up to 5 minutes to get onto Liberty Road. Since then, we have another 129 units built, plus our 108 units, to a total of 237 units, plus 3 businesses and 2 churches on Fallon Drive, including St. Stephen's Day School, which operates every day. This is such a danger to parents with children in their cars, residents, and church attendees to get out on Liberty Road. When you try to turn out on Liberty Road, you're holding your breath as people that are heading east are going at quite a fast speed. So you must wait a long time until it's clear to go both ways and pray no one's coming down the road. Adding a storage facility up on the hill 1 block away is adding more traffic and more danger to those driving out on Liberty Road from here or Carroll Highlands. Why do we want to make Sykesville-Eldersburg more commercial when we moved out here because of the rural feeling it has? I used to work in Randallstown at the hospital, and when I drove home and over the bridge, I was so glad to be here in the royal atmosphere. Please keep it this way and not add any more commercial places here, and help to keep us safe at Nels Acres. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Mike Rosenblit. I live at 6509 Panorama Drive. I've been in Eldersburg for 32 years now. My daughter and son-in-law moved out here. My son and daughter-in-law, my daughter and son-in-law, 2 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. So we're pretty much ensconced here. And we love it here. But this storage unit at the end of our street doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't fit in with the community. I understand that the owner of the property has a right to sell his property, make a profit, but put something in there that's reasonable. You know, an accounting office or a barber shop or some one-story building that fits in with our homes. That's the number one thing on my mind. The second thing is, I know on the plat I saw where 2 roads are supposed to come into Panorama Drive at some point in time, and that would destroy what the street really means. It's a dead end. It was sold to me as a dead end street. And then I found out later on there was a possibility of 2 roads coming into it. That would destroy what that street is. Right now, it's a tight street of 13 houses. We're all good neighbors. We love each other. I see kids riding bikes in the summer up and down the street. I see them with scooters. I see parents, you know, with carriages, and they all feel comfortable on that street right now the way it is. Putting 2 roads into it would ruin it. Thank you.
The next 5 will be Karen Donaldson, Amy Hardesty, Michael Bloom, and Will Newport.
Mr. Attorney, I apologize for my handwriting, but this youngster took a fall recently and my right arm's not what it used to be. Ladies and gentlemen, I think some of you in this room know who I am. I've been around for quite a while. My name is Dennis Beard. I live at 24 Denby Drive, which is in District 4. I'd rather be in District 5, nothing against Mike, but that's where my heart's been for a long time. I'm a life member of the Sykesville Freedom District Fire Department. I do not represent the department tonight. I'm speaking on behalf of Dennis Beard, the taxpayer. I'm also a retired fire lieutenant, Howard County, Maryland. And if I was on the job tonight, one of my questions would have been, I think this room is almost to capacity. My suggestion in the future, folks, we got Liberty High School up the street with a lot of accessible parking. Meetings like this should be held, okay? I got started back in latter part of 79, 1980, when Senators Charlie Smeltzer and Delegate V. Lanning Harkenhorn held a meeting on a Saturday morning at your facility in Westminster. Those gentlemen was our voices in Annapolis. And I got up that day and I made a lot of folks upset because I was concerned about two issues in the Sykesville Freedom District area. Number one, fire and EMS system, not only in Sykesville, but fire and EMS system in 1979 and 1980 was broken and needed to be repaired. And the other issue was planning. So we've been kicking well, we haven't, all your predecessors, and have kicked the two cans down the road. Now, I do got to give you folks credit. I truly, truly appreciate that you all bit the bullet when the fire and EMS program was sort of passed in your first term. I was honored to be a part of putting that package together that went to Annapolis. I never thought I would see that in my lifetime. But on planning, it's the issue that we had in 1980. I'm sorry, it's still here today. And what Chief Dennis reported earlier, if all that building is going to happen, I hate to see what my brothers and sisters who are currently riding the apparatus, not only at Sykesville Freedom, but the other volunteer and career departments that's going to have to roll in here to assist them. Thank you for your time.
Sorry, I need my glasses. I totally forgot about that. Trying to focus in and it wasn't happening. My name is Karen Donaldson, and I want to start by thanking Susan Krebs for taking on the position of the Carroll County Commissioner for District 5 and taking the job and the responsibility so seriously. I believe the development that has taken place in the zip code in the last 5 years is shocking, to say the least. And I even wonder how many citizens even knew that zoning ordinances were being written during COVID when everybody was in the survival mode. Citizens had no way of knowing that while they're home trying to get their kids to sit in front of a laptop for school time, that a community master plan meeting was being held. And that's going to affect their children's lives forever. So because of the terrible timing of this, I really think all anybody has to do is look around Eldersburg to see the many areas where the roads cannot handle the influx of vehicles at any time of the day. There are currently not proper ordinances in place to protect the quality of life that citizens deserve. So the only reasonable answer is to institute a deferral as soon as possible and be as proactive as possible. Please move forward with a team of educated, experienced people to correct the inconsistencies and to make sure that everything is in alignment with the master plan. I think it's really important because Susan found a serious hiccup, for lack of better description, and she came up with a reasonable way to fix it head on. So there's a group here that believes that this will send a negative message to the business community. I think it shows that this county cares about the quality of life of its citizens and that it's worth a little wait to do business here, maybe. That's the same group that already said the county could be sued like it was sued in 28 during the moratorium. But I have more faith in our commissioners that they will not make the same mistake twice. And we're only talking about a handful of projects. So this error needs to be corrected as soon as possible. And I would love to see the county get better and not worse. Thank you again, Susan, for investigating this, really. I truly commend you for doing this and putting your time in. You could be home with your grandkids.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Amy Hardesty. I am a resident of Eldersburg. I'll be honest with you, I used to be one of those no development voices. But I've come to understand something important. What Carroll County needs isn't no growth, it's smart growth. Growth that serves residents at every age, attracts families who want to build their lives here, and lets people age in place. Now let me tell you what I'm frustrated about. The last time our ordinances were updated was during the pandemic when no one was paying attention. We've been working with bare minimum outdated zoning codes ever since. And frankly, I'm pretty upset about this process that we have to go through to get something done that should have been done years ago. Tonight, I'm asking you to approve these deferrals. The Freedom area is the largest growth area in Carroll County that isn't incorporated, yet we have one representative on the Planning and Zoning Commission. One voice for the area absorbing the most development. That's not right, and it needs to change. I'm also asking you to direct staff to work with Commissioner Krebs on updating these zoning ordinances so the process is more predictable for staff, for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and for property owners. Everyone deserves clarity about what the rules are. We need codes that give property owners predictability. We need a framework that keeps Carroll County prosperous for years to come. We need regulations that prioritize safety over financial gains. We need proportional representation to the Freedom area on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We don't need a self-storage facility on Liberty Road. These deferrals aren't anti-development. They are pro-smart growth. Let's pause, get this right, and build a Carroll that works for everyone. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, Commissioners. Big fan of Susan Krebs as well. I'll echo everybody else's sentiments on that. I think we may I was trying to listen to everyone here, and I think we may have an answer already, because I don't think we want to mess with the residents of Nels Acres. I just think that's a really bad idea. Anyway, my name is Will Newport. I'm an appraiser. I've been a commercial real estate appraiser for 18 years, so I kind of live, eat, and breathe some of these questions about setbacks, zoning, permitted uses, and things like that. And I'm in support of the deferral. I think that the zoning code needs a lot of work. C2 is, the commercial properties have been zoned C2 up and down Liberty Road the whole way. And so potentially any of these existing properties could become self-storage units, warehouses, marijuana dispensaries. I don't know when we got so progressive that maybe that's how we came to the permitted uses in the C2 zone in the first place. I don't know. But I think that zoning change from BNR to C2 was flawed, and I listened to your blog, and I totally agree with that. The self-storage requires a 90% reduction in the required parking. Don't agree with that. Don't agree with the rear setback being 15 feet from an industrial building to a residential zone, should be 75 feet or so. There's zero upside to a tax base to a self-storage unit. There's no tax on unit rents. There's limited real estate taxes because of the low values. Other than that, I tried to find, being an appraiser, I wanted to know what the impacts on home values were when you put up a self-storage, 40-foot self-storage unit, and I can't find any next to residential homes anywhere in the Baltimore area. The new ones, you'll find the low-level ones, but no new multi-level self-storage units that I can find in the greater Baltimore area. So that should probably tell us something. They're all in industrial parks. So with that, I'll yield the rest of my time. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Next is Michael Bloom, Sarah Penn, Joyce Binnick, Amy Assman, and Bob Binnick.
I'm sorry. Can you Vanna White this for me? Just show everybody back there. And then we'll show the commissioners in a minute. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Sarah Penn. I feel like at this point I should add you guys to my Christmas card list or something. But for those of you that don't know, my name is Sarah Penn, and I live at 6504 Panorama Drive. I have lived in the area since 2018. I moved here because my aunt and uncle sold me on this wonderful community that they have lived in for 30 years. There's green spaces, and there's farms, and the schools are great, and everything's happy, and everybody's lovely and wonderful. I purchased in the boom of 2018, so I spent a lot of time in the area before I was able to actually purchase a house. And I ended up getting one on a dead-end street with lovely neighbors, and my kid can ride her bike up and down. And I can see all the stars out my windows, my Palladian windows, my skylights. So imagine my surprise when Mike, my 80-something-year-old neighbor at the time, I think you're in the 90s at this point, 87, I'm sorry, knocked on my door and said, "Hey, have you seen this? There is a road through your house because they're going to build a storage unit." This picture you guys are looking at is what the storage unit looks like and compared to my house. That little baby house at the bottom. So I was really, really surprised when I had a road through my house and nobody had said anything to me. And then, I'm a woman, so I cried a lot. And what was really shocking is I had read our Freedom District Plan. And one of the quotes in that is, recognizing that many citizens come to the Freedom area to escape the trappings of urbanization in surrounding counties, the government will not attempt to fundamentally transform communities against the will of existing homeowners and residents. Recognizing that the Freedom is a suburban rural area, government will respect the character of the community and its neighborhoods. So I'm not really sure how putting this massive gargantuan building is keeping with the character of our little single-story houses. It's very confusing. And then the roads through my house. Now there's two of them. There's one coming from Nels Acres that's coming onto Panorama, and there's another one that's coming from Carroll Highlands that's literally right through my house. So I agree with the comments that Nancy Lynch made about going from BNR to C2 was a massive oversight by the county. State Highway has continually denied access to Liberty Road and is forcing the storage unit to come from Carroll Highlands. The stretch of Liberty Road where this is not very graceful. It goes from 6 lanes to 2 very rapidly. I am ran off the road monthly. I am honked at daily. There was a massive accident on November 25th that stopped all traffic in every direction, and I had to go ask the very nice fireman in the pouring rain to let me out so I could go get my daughter. I'm not against development. I am against dangerous development. Let's keep this area wonderful and put industrial buildings in industrial zones. Thank you.
Joyce Bennick, Bob Bennick, Amy Asman. Go ahead, sorry.
My name is Joyce Bennick, and I have lived on Panorama Drive for 30 years. I'm here to support Commissioner Susan Krebs and the concerns she has raised regarding zoning and building practice in District 5. Around 2018, Carroll County revised its zoning without providing a comprehensive and clearly defined set of ordinances. New zoning requirements and definitions are unclear. When we, the residents, have questioned how proposed building projects fit the requirements, we have been told they're just guidelines. The result has been confusion for the residents and different interpretations by those applying the code. Zoning decisions have been made under definitions that are vague and inconsistently applied, so outcomes do not feel predictable or fair. What is even more concerning, many of these zoning interpretations are not in line with the Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan. This plan outlines expectations for growth, density, and land use compatibility. Yet zoning approvals continue to conflict with this plan. Commissioner Krebs has pointed out these inconsistencies throughout the zoning ordinances and how they are interpreted. This weakens zoning protection and leaves residents uncertain about the future of their neighborhoods. I have the same concerns as Commissioner Krebs about traffic impacts. It's very difficult to make a left-hand turn onto Liberty Road now. I never thought that I would see road rage on Liberty Road, but I do. And it seems that accidents are reported daily. Traffic and safety are already significant issues in this area. I'm particularly concerned about the Ridenour Way extension exiting Panorama. This area already experiences heavy traffic, limited sight lines, and safety challenges. The extension will worsen congestion and increase risk for everyone. These concerns are not about opposing growth, but about having clarity, consistency, and accountability. Please take Commissioner Krebs' concerns and review zoning definitions, interpretations, and their alignment with the Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan, so development in District 5 is planned, transparent, and fair. We are asking for something very reasonable: clear standards, consistent enforcement, and meaningful public engagement before major zoning or building changes are approved. These are not obstacles to progress. They are a foundation of good governance. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm Bob Binnick. I live with Joyce. And I thank Commissioner Krebs for her proposals, and I hope you support them. I first experienced the unchecked growth in the Freedom District when my children were younger, and they were moved from the elementary school and have to be bused miles away to another school because of unchecked new housing projects in the area. As the growth continued on Liberty Road corridor with multiple car washes, storage facilities, and 1,000 pizza places, the traffic, the problems increased. Due to lack of strategic traffic planning, it is seriously difficult to make a left-hand turn at any of the community streets unless you're at a light. It also appears that accidents and fatalities have increased in the area. Because of the continued growth, the stormwater management system has been overloaded. And instead of investing in the infrastructure in the Freedom area, the county solution to the problem was to double pave the streets. This created flooding in Panorama and Locust neighborhoods. This cost some homeowners thousands of dollars in damages and to repair their homes. That brings me to the 900-unit storage facility at Carroll Highlands. Over 200 residents spoke up against it at a meeting here. 2,000 people signed petition, and the county did nothing. It took the people in the neighborhood to sue the builder to stop the project. Even though the county guidelines in this project did not meet the criteria to build on that property in the first place. Right after that, the former commissioner brought in another contractor to build on the same site, another storage facility. What's wrong with this picture? Other counties have taken steps to protect their people in their neighborhoods by passing ordinances such as limiting mega storage facilities to industrial areas. When we presented that to the county here, we were told this is not PG County. We're asking now for you to be advocates for the people who live here. Invest in infrastructure in the Freedom District, control the growth, and protect our neighborhoods. It used to feel like Carroll County was home, just like the sign said. Not so much anymore.
After Amy Asman, we're going to hear from Trish Madison, Clark Schaefer, Sally Taylor, Brian Wolf, and Adam Sproul. Thank you. Go ahead, Amy.
Good evening. I'm Amy Asman. I live in the Freedom Forest neighborhood directly across from Carroll Highlands, so the storage facility will be the first thing I see when I drive out. I moved here a little over 27 years ago from White Marsh in Baltimore County because of the overdevelopment over there. We were trying to get away from that. And when I moved here, there were still a lot of wooded lots where a lot of the strip malls and stuff are now. The Freedom Comprehensive Plan of 2018 was created to ensure approved development does not outpace the county's ability to provide public facilities in a timely manner. To quote, Freedom's vision statement states, quote, growth is to be carefully managed to protect quality of life, values, promote sense of place, and preserve character of existing communities while supporting measured, balanced commercial development and employment opportunities, end quote. It further states, Carroll County values and citizens' unalienable rights of life, liberty, and property are respected, protected, and sustained. In addition, the government will not attempt to fundamentally transform communities against the will of existing homeowners and residents. Recognizing that Freedom is a suburban, rural area, government will respect the character of the community and its neighborhoods. We urge the officials in Westminster who make decisions about future development to continue the unwanted businesses that are forced on us that no one who lives down here wants or needs. To quote a former commissioner from 4 years ago during a commissioners meeting, he said, I'm sorry that some of the people down there in that area don't want the growth. They have my empathy and understanding, but that is an area where there's a Walmart and a Home Depot. There's all kinds of commercial and industrial development down there. In order to maintain our vision for Carroll County, we must have this kind of development within those designated growth areas. And if we restrict it, we're going to wind up destroying our county. We must preserve our rural countryside. We urge you to vote to approve this deferral and consider more carefully the property rights of the citizens in this part of the county and the reasons we all moved here. And I also have a final comment about the traffic. I teach in Westminster, so I'm on the road around 7:30 to 20 minutes to get to 97, and people are passing in turn lanes or passing on the side of the road. They run. I see people daily running lights, and I don't know if it's road rage, but they're very inconsiderate drivers, and it is scary at times. So thank you again for your consideration.
Hi, I'm Trish Madison. I also live down the street from Catherine and Amy and across the street from Lynn. But what I want to say is, while I recognize that our previous county commissioner is gone, and I'm going to be try hard not to be harsh and offer criticisms, but thank you, Susan, for stepping into this role. Back in my day, the civics class taught me that the roles of elected county officials were supposed to work toward the goals of the people that elected them. I've attended numerous meetings, not as many as Nancy, but none of us at the meetings ever felt we were being heard or our opinions held any weight. That's why the meetings like this are so appreciated, that we can have a bigger forum where we can express our concerns. And to piggyback off almost everybody up here, the traffic is crazy. We live in Freedom Forest, forget about turning left during rush hour, even turning right, it can take 5 to 10 minutes to try to get out of there. The other thing I wanted to express was I was unfamiliar with the concerns that the fire department official brought up. I just want to throw out there that I think none of us should be feeling safe in our homes at night right now, knowing that currently it's not up to standards, but it's only going to get worse. Lastly, I don't appreciate the threats that are coming out that we are going to be sued, wanting to ensure that these proposed projects are carried out with we want them to be carried out with the due diligence that's needed. I just don't want to feel like I listened in on the phone call that happened in November. Primarily, it was the developers that were there, and it was just every individual that spoke talked about, it's going to cost you money, it's going to cost you money. Money is not everything. We need to keep our people safe. We need to stop overcrowding our schools, overcrowding our streets. Everybody deserves growth. There's only so much land, and this is Carroll County. We'd like to keep some of it green. We lived in Anne Arundel County before this, and we've always said the goal of a developer in Anne Arundel County was they're done when there's nothing green left. I would like Carroll County to remain green. Thank you.
My name is Brian Wolf. I live at 1410 Bennett Road, which is the second house in off of 32 in Bennett. I have the traffic issue as well. I will say if you put that development down there on the Beatty property, that the way you're looking to add that many residents, 150, I believe, times 2 vehicles, maybe 3. Bennett Road cannot handle that. It takes, if you go there, and I asked, several years ago, I was at one of these meetings here, and the commissioner, one of the commissioners from not District 5, I asked them to please come down during rush hour or school hours to sit at Bennett and 32 or Oklahoma Road and Liberty. And he said at this meeting, I would never do that. Traffic's a nightmare. Why would I do that? So that says something right there. And he's not here right now, just to let you know. So, if you go down, if you leave with Bennett in school hours, because a lot of that's going into Freedom Elementary, Eldersburg, Liberty High, Oklahoma Road, you're going to be sitting at that light at Bennett and 32, probably 2 sessions during those hours. Okay, it's a 2 to 2.5, maybe 3-minute wait for that light. If you don't believe me, come up. I'm the second house in. I time it, so you know, I'll be working. And if you also leave there around those hours, it can take you 5 minutes to get from there to 32 and Liberty Road. Because as soon as you turn off Bennett, if you can get on to 32 at those hours, you're getting stopped at Progress with that light. Then you're getting stopped at London Town and Bartholomew light. Then you got to sit another 1.5 minutes at 32 and 26. I defer a lot of this to the gentleman from the fire department. I think safety should outrule, developers' pockets. Thank you for your time.
I'm sorry, I misread this card. You were at the very back of the line, so about bottom of the pile.
I knew I'd get special treatment. Good evening. Clark Schaefer. I'm a zoning lawyer and a resident of Carroll County. I think there's 2 things that face you today. The first one, obviously, is should you enact these deferral ordinances? And the second one is, do the regulations need looked at? I'm going to address the first one first. On the first one, I'm going to what the woman said about legal threat. This is not a threat. I'm just going to explain to you my view of the legal situation. When you take the drastic action of telling people who have come to your county, read your ordinances, hired engineers to design plans that meet those ordinances, been subjected to your adequate public facilities ordinances, and are either at the beginning of the stream or at the end, and it's a 1.5 to 3.5 year process. Sorry, you're done. But if we're nice, we might let you continue after 6 months. Let me say, when you enact a deferral ordinance, you have a very narrow legal lane. You need to have the authority to enact it, and you need to have an emergency. Now, if you think that the section of your zoning ordinance that says you can enact deferrals is your protection, I disagree. You cannot give yourself authority that you don't already have from the state. Remember, the old adage about the home rule, we need to go to Annapolis every time we need to get anything done around here. Well, the state gives you the power to regulate zoning and subdivision. And what you're saying in this deferral ordinance is, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to vote not to use that power for 6 months or 3 months. We're shutting down. We're not going to review any plans. We're not reviewing your plan. We're not processing your plan. Now, and is there an emergency? It's fine to get up here and say, yeah, it's terrible, traffic's terrible, I waited this much. That's all fine. In court, you need to give some examples. People dying while they're waiting for ambulances to get there. Schools at 52 students. Real stuff. I'm old enough to remember the commercial, Where's the Beef? Where's the beef on the emergency? Now, do maybe these ordinances need looked at? I'm guessing they do. I was the 7-foot area that the fire chief said. That's ridiculous. I mean, that needs to get looked at. But to enact a deferral, the drastic step, and impact big numbers of people, and it's not fair, it's not moral, and it's not justified under the circumstances. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry if I'm not as well spoken as those that came before me. I appreciate you all having a meeting where working people from the community can attend. That being said, this facility is not big enough. I second the statement that we move to a larger facility like Liberty. I've gotten messages of people that cannot park here that want to participate in this meeting. With that being said, Adam Sproul, I've lived here for over 30 years. My primary concerns are infrastructure with all the recent building and development. We've seen an intense increase in power outages, flooding, and a massive increase in taxes since we've been living here. And this is affecting the people that make this community what it is. Our groundwater resources are in danger of non-planned runoff and the collapse of tributaries that contribute to the overall water supply in the local area. It's affecting our natural water tables and aquifers, forcing citizens that previously run on well water to have to transfer over to and take on that expense to city water. We've received pre-notice from our homeowners insurance that they will no longer be covering flooding with the improper grading of the roads, as well as the development behind us. And so far, we've had an increase in massive amounts of water between just 3 of our neighbors where we could take a kayak down the runoff. And it's just ridiculous. Over the past few years with the development, the electricity has gone out more frequently with the priorities set to maintain, not enhance our power infrastructure in the area. We've also recently received a status of the lead pipes in our area is unknown, and that was sent out by the Carroll County government. They don't know what is feeding into our water supply. With all these, there's been 0 updates and 0 input on how everybody seeks to improve our area prior to the expansion. Our schools have way too many kids in them. They haven't been updated. Liberty is in massive need of update. And even Oklahoma Road, which is relatively a new school, is having issues with the air condition, which recently was replaced, but even the roof is falling apart. It's raining on the students in there. One of my students is in there. So what I would like to say is take a look at what's being developed, enhance what we have first before we move forward, because we need to maintain this community as what we moved forward with when everybody else moved here. And Ms. Susan, thank you. You're a beacon of light for our community.
Thank you.
After Sally Taylor, we're going to hear from Kathy Martin, Brooks Leahy, Kelly Miller, Craig Kershaw, and Robert Stolt.
Good evening. Sally Taylor, 1260 Guilford Road here in Eldersburg. I am not a zoning attorney. I do thank you for this formal meeting where folks can go on record, because I'm kind of, so many people have been so much more eloquent in their comments. But there's 2 things that I think that maybe we might look at. I have attended town halls in this very room, and I believe there are a lot of people have come forth and they have made very passionate pleas to our former county commissioner. Those pleas were not in a formal setting. As you know, I've had an opportunity to be going door to door, meeting a lot of my neighbors. Folks have told me that they have testified at town halls. And you know that town halls and petitions don't necessarily make a formal public comment record. This, with you all, does. I believe that the master plan should make something, it should mean something. It should be a priority. We use that to buy our homes, deciding where we want to live, where we want to send our children, and we needed that certainty to know what was around us. I think that should also weigh into any legal challenge to a deferral if you all decide to go forward. I'm grateful for Commissioner Krebs in quantifying the problems, and to the commissioners as a whole, for I know regardless of whether you go with the deferrals, you will be developing definitions that we need for positive growth. I hate the term smart growth. We need positive growth here in the Frederick District. I know I've lived here and I've expected the growth, but I am surprised at seeing the strip centers that have just popped up and the proposed facility over at Highland. That just tears at my heart. Roads are congested, as folks have been said, and infrastructure improvements need to come alongside new growth and not lag behind it. And certainly the safety concerns from our fire department and our first responders must be a great concern. I urge the commissioners to adopt these proposed deferrals, particularly the ones that relate to the self-storage facilities and the planned commercial centers, in order to finish the work required to define zoning process and definitions to protect our Freedom area from sprawl. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kathy Martin, 6405 Locust Lane, here in District 5. Tonight, I'm addressing 3 concerns. 1 is the lack of roadway improvements in the Freedom area. 2 is the lack of implementation of the planned major streets as described in the 2018 Freedom Area Master Plan. And 3 is the lack of assessment and evaluation of the traffic volume data to support decision-making. The Freedom Area Master Plan included 2 outcomes that referred to traffic. One was they urged the construction of all planned major streets. Currently, there is 1 planned major street and 7 planned neighborhood connections. The second goal of the Freedom Area Plan was to continue to aggressively pursue capacity enhancements to Maryland 32 and 26. The idea of enhancing Maryland 26 was first brought to my attention in 1994. To date, very little action to improve the flow of traffic has been implemented. Planned major streets and roads are designed to offload traffic from the main corridors. A list of planned major roads has been included in the Freedom Area Master Plan since 1977. Since that date, only 1 road has been completed, and that is Dickinson Road, which connects Oklahoma to West Hemlock. The lack of concurrence with the Freedom Area Master Plan has left us with heavy traffic conditions that are unsafe on a daily basis. And I disagree with the attorney. I believe we do have an emergency when we have 5 weeks, 2 fatal accidents on Maryland 26. 5 weeks this summer, 2 fatal motorcycle accidents. That is an emergency. In case you wonder about improvements on Maryland 26, just to let everybody know that Carroll County has stated that it is a high priority for our county to improve Maryland 26. There is a budget of $34 million to do this work, and we will keep a close eye on this project. About traffic volume data, what does the current available data show us? The 2025 Carroll County Transportation Master Plan states that the following conditions currently exist. On a scale of A to F, 3 roads that intersect with Maryland 26 have scores of D, E, and F. That is currently. The road that my neighbors who live on Panorama Drive described, the intersection between Panorama and Maryland 26, has no data recorded. I searched the 2018 document that's on the website, which includes data from all the way back in the 1990s. Very little data has been collected or analyzed. And Panorama Drive at Maryland 26 has no data. That's an emergency to me as well. In conclusion, as Commissioner Krebs has stressed, the areas surrounding Eldersburg and Sykesville are the only area that is in the designated growth area that is not located in a town or city. Therefore, we must rely on you, our county commissioners, to act as if you are our mayors, because we do not have a mayor. Please take the same interest in Eldersburg that you take in Mount Airy, Hampstead, Tawnytown, and Westminster, and approve these deferrals to allow for a more thorough review of zoning ordinances, definitions, and other factors such as roads. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners and fellow citizens. My name's Craig Kershaw. I live at 5515 Hudson Drive, not too far from here. I lived in Carroll County for over 30 years. I want to thank Susan for getting back in the saddle. I think this crowd should give her an applause. There was a woman that talked very early on, and she used a phrase that has stuck with me. I didn't come here to give my opinions, but when they offered, do I want to speak, I said, well, I'll fill the form out, and if I get something to say, I'll say it. And she used a phrase that I think hits the nail on the head. And the phrase was, out of control. And I hear my neighbors are faced with a prospect of a 4 or 5 story building in their neighborhood. Does this seem to be out of control? Yes. Okay. When the fire chief tells us he can't get the equipment down the road because the county has let the developers structure the road so that if people park on both sides, the fire truck can't get down the road. Out of control? Yes. That sound out of control? Susan had mentioned in one of her talks about 3-story senior citizen developments. Yep. And I thought to myself, I'm an old guy. I really don't want to walk up and down 3 stories. How many of you old folks want a house that's 3 stories high? Can we get a show of hands? No. Again, out of control. Okay? It's just out of control. I don't know who's dreaming this stuff up. A lot of talk about traffic. I won't even go there. There was a master plan, and I hear that we've gotten away from the master plan. And I don't know how we got away from it, but the challenge that we've got, all of us in this room, is coming up with a plan that works. Is it their job? Yeah, but it's our job too. So please, let's get a plan that works.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, J. Brooks Leahy, Delaney Leahy, Curtis and Brophy, 182 East Main Street, Westminster, Maryland. I'm here on behalf of a client, Barefoot Land Company. Now, Barefoot submitted a site development plan to Carroll County on November 24, 2025 for a project known as Eldersburg Crossroads Self-Storage. The site for this proposed self-storage facility is located on Route 32, north of its intersection with Route 26. The site is south of the existing Rite Aid and Chick-fil-A, and it's immediately south of a Baltimore Gas and Electric substation. So that's where it's located. This site is Zone C3, high density commercial. It's not Zone C2, it's not formally BNR. On July 23rd, 2025, an administrative adjustment for reduction of parking space was approved by the zoning administrator. The property was posted, and all the immediate neighbors were notified. Nobody asked for a hearing. Nobody in the immediate neighborhood obviously had any concerns. So Barefoot requests the commissioners to consider grandfathering self-storage facilities that have already submitted site plans. And note that Barefoot has paid $12,950 review fee to have their plans reviewed. In the alternative, Barefoot would request that all pending site plans continue to be reviewed. In other words, that the site plan review process continues, but site plan approval could be deferred for the 90 days. Now, my client expects to participate and provide comments and suggestions to any text amendments that the commissioners may choose to make with regard to the self-storage. I'm submitting a letter and enclosures that I'd like to be made part of the record. And the submittal includes discussions about this particular projects and elevations of the projects that show, a minor impact. Thank you for your consideration, and may I bring this up to you?
Yes, thank you.
I have 6 copies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. After Kelly Miller, we're going to hear from Guido DeMaio, Taylor Farris, Kelly Atkinson, Mike Kuhn, and John Bowers. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Kelly Miller, 73 East Main Street, Westminster, Maryland, 21157. As you're all well aware, I am here tonight in opposition to the proposed deferral. In 2018, we saw the adoption of the Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan. That was not a quick process. Everybody here was probably involved in that process. It took several years. We were in this room several times together. Following the adoption of the Freedom Community Comprehensive Plan, we saw a multi-year comprehensive text amendment process. That spanned from the adoption of the Freedom Plan in 2018 for the next 3 years. That process went through multiple phases: the commercial industrial phase, the residential phase, then we saw the ag and conservation phase, and then we saw amendments to Chapter 155, which is the site plan requirements. It was not quick. It was publicly advertised. There were several attendees at multiple meetings. There were public meetings. There were virtual meetings. There were hearings. It went through a long process to get where we then ended up with a comprehensive text amendment to the zoning ordinance. That is the ordinance that everybody relied on, because that's what was in place. Now, it had been amended in small pieces from that point forward, and I believe that all of the plans that are in process right now have complied with the amendments that are applicable to them, that have occurred. Not only did that process occur over a long period with lots of input and public comment, but we also have a site plan process. We have a site plan and we have a subdivision process as part of our code today. We have requirements for adequate public facilities. We have an annual concurrency management report that informs our APFO ordinance. We have other guidelines and criteria that all site plans have to meet in order to be eligible for final approval before any body. I would task each member here, if they've not already done so, trying to track a site plan or a subdivision plan from start to finish through the process, because I can assure you that it is not an easy process, nor is it a short process. There are over 18 agencies that review either of those plans. One of them is Fire and Emergency Services. We understand and appreciate this body's ability to look at the need for text amendments. That's always been the role of the legislature. The question tonight is, what is the basis for the deferral of development while those text amendments are being processed? And I would submit to you that there is no basis for a deferral tonight, and that you have the authority to consider and evaluate those text amendments, and we anticipate being active participants in that process, but that there's no reason to stop developments in process at this point in time, plans in process, I should say. So I would say I am here tonight in opposition of the deferral, or alternatively would request that this body exempt plans, submitted plans, and allow them to continue in process. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Atkinson, and I've lived on Watson Court for 30 years. I didn't arrive tonight with any planned comments, and I don't have anything substantial to add to what's already been said. I would, however, like to state for the record that I emphatically agree with the citizens who spoke before me objecting to the storage facilities and the flawed current state of Freedom District planning. I am in favor of the deferrals, and I agree with Mr. and Mrs. Lynch's suggestion for a citizen-based review of development proposals, and I share the emergency responders' concerns regarding adequacy. Thank you, Commissioner Krebs, for organizing tonight's hearing.
Hello, my name is Guido DeMaio. I live at 6512 Panorama Drive, which is a street that is of a lot of concern tonight. Some of my fellow neighbors have been here and talked before me. I definitely don't want to see the storage unit go up. One thing that I haven't heard most people or anybody talk about is statistics. All right, what's the statistics in regards to needing that facility? All right, are there an overabundance of people that are looking to store stuff? Are the other ones that are already established at full capacity or less? All right. The most important thing is with this egress out to 26 at the end of Panorama Drive, it's going to create a lot more time to get out onto 26. Okay. Currently, I go down that road every day down to 26. And I can tell you that I'm sitting at that intersection to make a left turn at least 3 to 5 minutes, okay, because of the traffic that's coming on. And basically, you've got a left turn lane, you can use it, but it still doesn't matter because there's so much traffic going back and forth, all right? So I would like to see us go into a deferral to establish what needs to be done to make things better. And when I say make things better, I'm looking for the panel, you guys, to step forward and make sure things don't get changed arbitrarily in regards to zoning. All right, 2018 people have talked about the zoning that was there. I mean, my understanding is that where Nellis Acres currently sits with 240 people, there was only supposed to be 20 single homes there, okay? That's an imbalance, okay? And what I'm asking is that you guys and gals make a difference with that imbalance. That's your job, not ours, okay? So, Susan, thank you very much for putting into this deferral. The important thing is, even if deferral goes through, you still gotta get beyond the deferral. You got to decide, what are you going to do when the day comes that the deferral ends? All right? Are you just going to sit back and just let the builders just take over and continue what they're doing? Or are you going to make a difference and sit down and say, well, wait a minute, let's take a look at this and actually converse with the builders to stop the growth to a degree? I'm in favor of growth, but you got to have it to a degree. Okay? Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, my name is Mike Kuhn. I live at 1606 Bennett Road. I've only lived here for about 6 years now. I lived in Howard County prior to that. I don't have anything prepared, so mine might be a little bit more just off the cuff. But basically what I wanted to say, I live adjacent also to the Gibson property. It's about 54 acres that's on 32 just south of Pine Knob. That was sold in February of this year. And forgive any mistakes, but as a public record, my understanding is that is owned by Gibson Property LLC. The resident agent is Jeffrey Powers of Powers Construction. They're also doing the Whispering Pines, I think, at the Wolf property. Some of the people opposing the deferrals basically said that we may scare off developers or add additional costs. I think home prices is a complex topic. I think that's a little bit ambitious to be able to read into that. I've lived, grew up in Ellicott City. Eldersburg feels so much like Ellicott City used to before the development. But if you were to ask those people after the fact if additional buildings reduced home prices in the area, even if it did temporarily, I think that's short-sighted. I also would say that these comments make it feel like we're being asked to prioritize future residents over current residents and prioritize builders over current residents. So while I think there's something to be said about future residents, I don't think they should have priority over the people already living here. My understanding also is that there is a high likelihood of Monroe connecting not only on the Wolf property to Bennett Road, but also from Bennett Road through to 32. That might be speculation, but I live right next to it. It looks very likely. I watched CLSI survey that property. You know, they said that they were asked to survey those where Monroe terminates currently in, I think it's Quincy Station. When I lived in Elkridge, my mom lives near New Windsor, I think, like 26 and 27 intersection. I could get there through Marriottsville 2, through 32, through 97, 94. They're all very similar in time. So like some of these things, we may even be absorbing traffic from the development of like Finksburg or areas northwest of us in the future. So I don't have the details to know the impact of those things, but again, coming from Howard County, I can tell you the impacts of these things. It's not stuff that's easy to go back and fix after the fact. And I also believe that 3 months, 6 months to a developer, like I'm not a developer, I can't speak for them, but I really don't think that's going to scare them off. I don't think it's going to stop people from wanting to develop our land in the future. I am in support of the deferrals, unless you can show me a good reason not to.
Commissioners, excuse me, I appreciate you letting me speak. My name is Taylor Ferris. I'm the Carroll County Chapter Chair for Maryland Building Industry Association. I also grew up in the area, currently live in the area with my young family, and have built homes in Carroll County for over 21 years, and I'm really proud of that. And there have been many good points made throughout tonight across the board on both sides, and all of them are 100% valid. Unfortunately, I just feel like this is a complicated issue that can't be resolved with a moratorium. And, you know, I think the solution is to collaborate with everyone involved so everybody's goals can be met and so they're clear from the very beginning of the process. So I do agree that the county has guidelines that should be looked at, reviewed. I don't feel it's necessary to stop everything in order to correct them. So I think there's a lot of agreement in this room. The question is, how do we accomplish that? A blanket moratorium, I think, is going to greatly disrupt the economy and local workforce for a lot longer than the actual moratorium is in place. And in summary, I do support the intent of the ordinance, just believe it needs to be refined before incorporating, just to prevent unintended consequences. Thank you.
After John Bowers, we're going to hear from John and Sheila Floyd, Les Horniman, Bruce Harvey, Tad Caldwell, and Sherry Healy.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's John Bowers, 35-year resident of Carroll County, taxpayer, registered voter. Appreciate your time this evening to listen to all of your constituents. As my predecessor said, there were a lot of very, very good points raised. And I had prepared some notes previously, but upon my time here, there's some things that just kind of struck me that I wanted to point out. One was predictability, certainty, clarity, directed growth. And someone was talking about the fact that, you know, the term smart growth or wise growth or whatever that happens to be. Carroll County has a goal of 100,000 acres in their Ag-Pres program. And I believe we're at, what, 80,000 currently? That is a purposeful decision to maintain the agricultural community of Carroll County. But you need to be able to direct growth to protect those properties that may potentially develop in the future. So my position is I would ask you to give serious consideration to postponing the deferral to where further information can be gathered by both county staff, the business community, and the community at large. And to consider Kelly's comment about with certain projects where they are within the approval pipeline to allow them to continue to move forward and not stop that progress. So I thank you again, Commissioners, for your time and meeting with your constituents to hear everyone's concerns. Thank you.
Hi, Les Horniman. I live on Monroe Avenue off of Bennett Road. And I've listened to everything that's been said tonight, and I understand the developer's point of view. I understand the residents' point of view. I've lived here since 1979, been to a number of these meetings, been through this planning, master planning, and everything else, and watched as it never got implemented the way we envisioned at the time, whenever it was, 1979, 1989, 1999, 2019. It never works out. I'm in support of the deferral, but I'm also in support of re-looking at how planning and how zoning is handled in this area. We are the only ones, again, that have no municipal structure, all right? So we're at your mercy. We're at your planning and zoning people's mercy. When we went to do the 2018 plan, I live off of Bennett. I bought a piece of property there, built a house in 2000, and moved there and spent a lot of money based on the zoning that was in place across Bennett Road and up Bennett Road and all. I made a big investment. So I got involved 2018 because they were suddenly going to rezone. The planners wanted to make the Wolf property and the Beatty property R10, high-density housing, which had always been planned to be south of Liberty Road, not north. That was all supposed to be R20 and R40 and conservation area. And that's why I bought there. Now, I don't know what happened with the zoning ordinances that were supposed to support that master plan, but they obviously were not enacted or put together in a way to support that. They were put together in a way to support the initial planning of what they wanted to do with the R10 on the Beatty property. The Beatty property now is going to be developed into 200 townhouses, which I don't care what the math says or whatever, that's complies with R20 somehow. It looks like R10. It looks like high density when you look at it. It's going to act like high density as far as the number of people. The zoning ordinances do not support what we envision as the master plan. Something needs to be done to couple them up, and there needs to be some sort of planning authority that this area has that they can depend on to make sure that the master plans are implemented the way through the zoning and everything else that it was envisioned by the residents. That's all. I just think, I understand legally, maybe we don't have a leg to stand on, but I think morally and the responsibility that you all have, the citizens of this area, give us a leg to stand on, at least to step back, put some sort of deferral in place, and figure out how to get these zoning ordinances in line and support what's in the master plan and what we want for this area. I don't want to live in Randallstown. I don't want to live in Columbia. I want to live in the vision of Eldersburg that we all had when we moved out here. So, thank you.
Good evening, Bruce Harvey. I'm president and majority owner of Williamsburg Homes, contract purchaser and builder for the project known as Piney Ridge Parkway Age Restricted Villas. We've called it Evergreen Villas. It hasn't gotten to the county that way yet. I do greatly appreciate, as others have said, the time that the commissioners have been willing to give the development and building community and others, you know, as we've talked about the deferral ordinances. The Piney Ridge project has BZA approval and is only one final stormwater management review from full concept plan approval. I am requesting that exemptions be given to plans of this type from the deferral ordinance for retirement villages and retirement homes. If subject to the ordinance, we can predict that our project would require extensive engineering redesign during the final site plan process. For me, the home builder, it feels like the house is fully framed and we're going to go change all of our architectural plans. As if the customer, wants to redesign it completely. Obviously, that's expensive and time consuming, but really the real risk for our development team is that, the project becomes unviable. I certainly agree and commit that our project will comply with universal design standards. That's certainly something that's missing. We should do that without code and enforcement, frankly, because that's what our customers want. But other potential text amendments being discussed could, as we just said, potentially really require substantial re-engineering. So in conclusion, to be brief as possible, if you decide to pass these deferral ordinances, I encourage that projects like ours that have approvals be exempted. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Did he say what project?
Hi, my name is Shelley Floyd. My husband, John, and I moved to Carroll County over 30 years ago. We live in Presidential Park off of Clee Mill Road. There's another piece of property that we're concerned about. It's just in from Liberty Road, past Ronsdale. It's right next to the Sun Valley assisted living facility. It's 171 acres that, again, in 2020 was rezoned from agricultural to EC, Employment Council. That's just the extent of my research, but I think we should keep our eye on that in light of everything that's going on. We do support the temporary deferral. We oppose the multi-use buildings that are popping up everywhere. They look terrible. We oppose storage facilities, additional storage facilities. We oppose additional housing and absolutely oppose the high-density housing. Again, we're concerned about that Clee Mill property and whether or not it's consistent with that master plan. Thank you very much.
I have Tad Caldwell and Sherry Healy. Are they interested in speaking? If not, let's hear from Rebecca Stover, Andrew Sims, Scott Cooper, and Mike Kachanok.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Rebecca Stover. The residents of this area have made their position abundantly clear. The 2023 turnout at this very senior center discussing the storage facility demonstrated the depth of our concern. There were no parking spaces left, standing room only, and people filling the hallways just to have their voices heard. That kind of engagement and this kind of engagement tonight speaks volumes. It reflects a community that cares deeply about responsible growth and preserving the character of our home. The ongoing movement toward approving the storage facility and additional facilities tells a different story. Our voices are not being meaningfully considered, and it feels as though these decisions are being moved forward regardless, without the fairness and transparency that our community deserves. Please listen to the people who live here. We are not opposed to progress. We are asking for thoughtful, community-driven planning. Stand with Commissioner Krebs, and stand with your constituents. This is an emergency. This is our home, and we are asking you to protect it. Thank you.
Hello, Andrew Sims, 6711 Carroll Highlands Road. One of the things I wanted to start off with, we started with the Pledge of Allegiance. It starts with we the people. We the citizens, not we the developers, not we the outside corporations that are centered in Florida. That's really important. Also, we vote for you. And as the woman from Westminster said, you know, people came here and spent a lot of time to put together the 28 Freedom Plan and expected you to live to the spirit of that agreement. We don't have time to do government full time. We work 40, 50, 60-hour job a week to pay to live here and to be then cast aside and told, well, you don't have direct representation. So we're going to just throw everything and anything at this area because they don't have a mayor, a councilman, et cetera. That's not fair, and that's not right, and that's not your jobs. Your jobs are to speak for us, not for the developers. The developers have their lawyers. They can come to you. And if we have to take a little bit of a hit on this, then maybe that's the right thing to do. But as others have said, you can't take the cat out of the bag. Once you put a 50-foot storage facility at the top of a hill in front of a neighborhood, that will be what people see when they come into Carroll County via 26. And if that building goes out of business and it sits there vacant, is that what we want to see? What if that craters that neighborhood? And then all of a sudden that creates a ripple effect that the Freedom area is no longer a nice place to live. These are all things we have to address before we allow building to go forward. Secondly, I think our neighbors in Ellicott City would vastly agree in terms of the flooding that they probably shouldn't have listened to developers' flood plans, as we saw a few times where their cities got absolutely washed out. Several of us live down at the bottoms of hills. Sykesville could also be affected by our development. Is it fair to flood out people because we trusted a developer's paid and bought flood assessment? So other than that, I reiterate those things. I do also want to point out that outside of one developer, not a single person that has spoken in opposition to the deferral has lived in District 5. So they are not speaking for us. They're speaking for their own personal interests that they don't have to then live with. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Scott Cooper, 622 Bayshore Drive, Osprey, Florida. I wanted to clarify a couple things. I've heard that my facility, that I'm actually the developer of the self-storage facility at Carroll Highlands Road and Liberty Road, that the facility is 5 stories tall. It's 3 stories tall and 24 feet high at the rear of the building. Did that to accommodate the neighbors for that. And I also want to say the road that is not, people are talking about, that has nothing to do with our project. That's a county decision to put a road back there. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Obviously, I'm against the deferral moratorium, and I've heard a lot about fairness and clarity during the last few meetings. And what I really like to say is I'm not sure how much more clarity I could have had. I mean, the county zoning code states that the site that I'm looking at and working with is by right. So, and the county has backed my project from day one. I remember sitting here literally a year and a half ago with the commissioner. And, there was some opposition, but the county itself said, hey, let's move forward. Also, when it comes to fairness, I think the deferral moratorium is actually the opposite of fairness. I've abided by every county rule through the entire process for the last 18 months at great financial cost. I've even gone so far as to over-design the stormwater management system, which was just brought up, for the county for the road that they plan to build behind the project. I've also done everything possible to accommodate the neighbors who have reached out to me. After working through this long process and being within a whisker of getting final approvals, it does seem that because some people have decided they do not like the approved uses in the county zoning code, that everything that we have done to date will be for naught. And this sets, in my mind, a very bad precedent, because if you can change the zoning code now at a whim, what happens if the next developer wants to put a gas station or a restaurant in C2? Will they be standing here again with a deferral, facing a deferral? So in conclusion, I would just ask for fairness and allow our project to move forward because of where we are in the process. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. After the next speaker, we're going to hear from Lois Mathis, Dennis Boyle, Paul Kavanaugh, Katie Garrity, and Joe Grundy. Thank you.
Hi, Mike Kalanock, JPB Johnsville. We are the landowners and developers for the Piney Ridge Parkway age-restricted villa plan. First, would like to thank the commissioners who have made themselves available over the last several weeks to talk with the development community as well as all the residents. Certainly felt like we were heard and appreciate that. Tonight, I'm requesting that you exempt Piney Ridge Parkway age-restricted villas and other similar projects from the deferral ordinance. We own the 6.6 acres of raw land surrounded by St. Joseph Catholic Church, Wesley Freedom, multifamily projects, and single-family subdivisions. Prior to us acquiring this land, projects that were considered for this same parcel were gas stations, restaurants, banquet halls, and other commercially permitted uses. We think ours is a much friendlier option. We started voluntary and county meetings for this project back in 2021. Our initial plans called for a 3 to 4 level project consisting of 67 for-rent apartments and on 3 acres. At that point, we only owned the one parcel. We later acquired the church's 3.5 acres. Due to inflation, market conditions, community feedback, we've modified our plan to include now 31 two-story townhome villas to be built by Williamsburg Homes and Mr. Harvey's company that spoke about this project. Our current guidelines, actually, our county guidelines permit up to 96 units of density, so we feel the 31 is quite a comfortable fit there. We started the formal current process with the county about a year ago in December. We are down to our final stormwater management concept review comments to attain formal concept plan approval. Our project will have virtually no impact on APFO issues, and we will be required to improve the existing and very dated regional stormwater management facility that serves this project. Should the deferral ordinance pass, we ask that you consider criteria which will exempt ours and similar projects. Thank you.
Hi, I'm here to represent Lois Mathis, 6510 Carroll Highlands Road. My name is Kim Hausman. She sent me this email to read since she could not be here tonight. These are comments from a senior citizen who can't attend tonight and lives a few doors down from the site of the proposed storage facility. As a lifelong resident of Sykesville, Maryland, and a 40-plus year resident of the Carroll Highlands community, I respectfully voice my continued opposition to the proposed construction of a storage facility at the entrance of our neighborhood. While I understand the need for storage options, this project is not appropriate for a residential area such as ours. I further understand changes were made to the plans submitted a few years ago, and the project is with a new developer. However, the new plans are not suitable for a residential area. Why are other types of commercial options not being considered that are single story? Our neighborhood is quiet, family-oriented, and home to many children who play outside daily. The introduction of such a large commercial facility will inevitably disrupt this environment. Increased traffic, bright lighting, and the constant movement of people who do not live in our neighborhood pose both safety and quality of life concerns for me and my neighbors. Additionally, large storage facilities have been linked to increased risk of crime, which is a very troubling possibility for our families. It is also worth noting that there are already several storage facilities nearby that adequately serve the community. The addition of yet another facility, especially one of this size and scale, seems unnecessary. If a new storage facility is deemed essential, it would be far more suitable to be located in a designated industrial area, not within our connected to a residential neighborhood. I urge you to please carefully consider the long-term impact this development will have on the residents you represent. You are responsible for making sure that our community remains safe, quiet, and family-friendly. I highly recommend that you do not approve this project and encourage development that aligns with the character and needs of our neighborhood. There are ways that fiscal responsibility and meeting the needs of the people of the community do not have to be mutually exclusive. I would ask that you consider the options for the commercially zoned land, that you ask yourselves, how would you like this large building to be at the entrance to your community. For some, this will be the view out their window, and no amount of new vegetation planted will hide it. How would you feel about that? Thank you for your time and attention to this important matter. I want to make sure that future generations that live in this community get to experience it in the same way that I did for their families. Please do not approve this project.
Hi, I'm Paul Cavanaugh, 601 Longbow Road, Mount Airy. I've only been a Carroll County resident 23 years, so I have a few more years to go. I was actually motivated slightly differently. I have 4 sons that graduated from South Carroll High School. I have a bigger concern regarding the positive impacts construction has on local businesses, local contractors. My son's friends and sons recently being able to get out and plow snow. There's a lot of benefits to development. I don't dissuade any of the neighbors' concerns. I think the evaluation of the zoning regulations can and should be done. If it only takes 3 months to make the improvements, I'm not sure what was happening for the past 6 weeks. It's just timing. My son does work in Eldersburg. My other son works in Mount Airy, small businesses. Those are my motivations for speaking. I have 2 more sons that will need jobs. If I want to age in Carroll County, to downsize, age in place, I'd like opportunities to do that. I'm not there yet, but those were my thoughts moving up, and I listened to all the speakers. I think there was a lot of good points made. I just don't know what the urgency is currently. That's my concern personally. And I appreciate your time and your giving us the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
After this next speaker, we're going to hear from Diana Bergman, Matt Weinman, Matt Hall, Jason Van Kirk, and Michael McCann.
Hi, my name is Dennis Boyle. I'm a commercial real estate agent in the area and a 30-year resident of Eldersburg. 2 of the challenges that I see that have been facing the county for a number of years is affordable housing, and the second is just the jobs in the area. This, regarding the residential housing, the only way to keep housing affordable, keep the aging population to stay when they want to downsize, when the kids are out of the house and they can't afford to stay in Eldersburg or in Carroll County, they're forced to move out of the area. So those 2 segments of the population are forced to leave the area because there's no affordable housing. And in most cases, the cluster-built housing is the only way to achieve affordable housing in that. Regarding the jobs, Carroll County still remains the #1 county of people going outside of the county to go to work. And that's evident by, look at the roads in the morning, 26 heading east, any of the 4 roads heading south out of this area jammed every morning. That's evidence of people having to go outside of the county to go to work. So the goal is, how do we create jobs in the community and alleviate some of that traffic as well? I think the projects that we're looking at do produce some amenities and also jobs during the construction aspect of it and then further on. Some people had mentioned about putting the self-storage in the industrial zone. In this county, we have a very minimal amount of industrial zone property. That property has been preserved for years to try to create jobs within the county, manufacturing, distribution facilities. So recently, and when they did the zoning rezoned back in 2019, one of the things that they disallowed is certain uses in industrial to enable those projects to create jobs, not other uses. So that's what I see, from my perspective, working in this county for 30 years, I agree with Kelly Miller. I think the projects that are in place right now, these developers have spent a lot of time and effort. They have projects that work for this community. They have followed the guidelines of the county, the zoning ordinances, and they should not be, stopped in the process. I think moving forward for future, I think that there's time to look at the zoning and, the code aspects of it. But for the projects that are in effect right now, they have followed every guideline. These developers have brought millions of dollars to this community. Several of them have done multiple projects here as well, and that creates a tax basis for our community. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Garrity. I've lived in the Freedom District area for over 20 years. I am in support of the proposed deferral put forth by Commissioner Krebs. I ask the board to use this time to thoroughly consider the overall impact of various zoning and development projects in the Freedom area. I also ask the board to review the processes for planning and zoning review, approval, and public input. We need better input in this area. We don't have enough of a voice considering how much we give up. The citizens of the community deserve to have safe intersections, schools that aren't over capacity, sidewalks that actually go somewhere, sports fields and facilities that can handle our growing population. Try driving past Eldersburg Elementary on a soccer or baseball game day, or on Placid anytime Freedom Elementary has an event. It is no secret that Freedom Elementary is and will continue to be over capacity for years to come. Currently, it is over 118 students over capacity. That's a lot for a building deemed too old for modernization or expansion. Sykesville Middle is also beyond modernization, and Liberty is in desperate need of repair. Why doesn't the county build a new school? All of this recent growth of nail salons and pizza places must be bringing in tremendous wealth of income. Sadly, that isn't the case. No money, no land, no new school. Poor planning for a designated growth area. Per the Maryland Department of Planning, Carroll County public school enrollment is expected to increase by 8.9% between 2022 to 2032. Where will seats be for these students? To skirt around school impact, there is a push for 55 and over housing. By 2032, that larger boomer population will be between 68 and 86 years old. We don't all live forever. What happens to those properties as their residents move into nursing care and the next generation is much smaller? Will they become multifamily units, adding more strain to our schools, or nail salons and vape shops? When I attended my first Freedom Plan meeting, I was many would call an NIMBY, but I learned something from a citizen that night. He asked if growth was done in a way where it didn't negatively impact you, it didn't affect your commute, your child's education, your way of life, would you care? That's the way growth should happen in a community, with vision, forethought, and purpose, with continuity to surrounding areas and consideration to existing residents. We have been left with aging and overcapacity schools, sidewalks to nowhere, intersections that can't handle the current traffic, empty commercial spaces, businesses playing musical chairs. Most recently, an existing plumbing supply company moved to a large vacant property, a property that could have been developed with purpose and meaning. Instead, we have the same thing in a new location, where one day patrons of a hotel and children in daycare may enjoy the industrial sights and sounds. We need to do better. Maybe we should incorporate. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Grundy, and I'm a citizen of the Freedom area. I've been a citizen here since about 2003. And I just want to say thank you so much to Commissioner Krebs for taking over this role while Commissioner Rothstein is off to do bigger and better things. I do support the deferral, and I really give Commissioner Krebs a lot of credit for having the courage to come up with this idea to present to her other commissioners and to the public. If those here tonight that are upset about this, proposal, I would really put the blame on previous poor planning directors, planning and zoning commissioner members, and county commissioners. It's, as others have said, we have kicked the can too far for too long. Hats off to everyone attending tonight. I know some had to leave. I think it's past my bedtime myself. But hats off to everybody attending tonight that is not expecting to directly profit from continued unchecked growth in our community. The 2018 Freedom Comprehensive Plan is not perfect. There were a lot of concessions that were made by members of the community. I know one of them is now serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission for our district, Mr. Pete Lester. I appreciate his decision to do that so well, and he really truly does care about the community. Unfortunately, he is the minority. He's the only representation of our district, and many people just don't understand what we're dealing with down here in the Freedom area. One of the key decisions in the Freedom Plan that was very short-sighted, I think they knew what they were doing though, was to reallocate limited remaining sewer capacity. That has allowed a lot of this growth to occur, because once you allocate public sewer, then you can do the higher densities in residential areas. The plan itself, the 2018 plan, has continuously been eroded by numerous approved amendments to the water and sewer plan, rezoning requests to higher density residential, higher density commercial uses, and rewriting of the zoning chapters 155 and 158. The previous planning department representatives, they've used, for example, the Snowden's Run retirement community on Oklahoma Road. That has been an example as what not to do. And they said that the planning process and approval process fell short. To me, this self-storage facility is even worse. It's not even a living space. They also, when asked why an entire neighborhood, an older neighborhood on small lots, on septic that could not, connect to public sewer, it was shown in county maps for decades that certain neighborhoods would be connected as new development came in and brought the sewer closer. The answer I was given from the previous planning director, Linda Eisenberg, was, I do not know. Well, that is unacceptable. I encourage and engage a citizens group is one of the things in the Freedom Plan. We did form the Freedom District Citizens Association. I was a very active member from about 2018 through maybe 2023. The previous District 5 Commissioner's actions demonstrate that he did not listen to FDCA and other citizens' concerns. And a lot of us actually went dormant because we came to many meetings, we wrote a lot of letters, there's a lot of planning expertise, people that previously served on Planning and Zoning Commission, and we simply just were not taken seriously. It seemed like, as another person said, they were prioritizing developers from outside the county over existing residents. I think I'm out of time, so I will wrap it up. I just want to add that I support the idea of a Freedom Area Planning and Zoning Commission, and I encourage anyone in this room or listening to apply to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Matt Weinman. I'm a representative of Lennar Homes in this project known as Freedom's Grant. But I'm also a citizen and taxpayer of Carroll County and have been for over 25 years. Our project is proposing new single-family and villa-style villa-style homes, active adult homes. We're proposing to build a pool, a clubhouse, pickleball courts, bocce courts, walking trails, and what have you. We've been working on this project for over 5 years. We've spent over $1 million in processing fees to process the plan throughout the various county agencies. Our site is zoned R20,000, which allows for a maximum density of 3.5 units per acre, and our plan is consistent with that plan. Our project is also consistent with the future land use designation depicted on the Freedom County Comprehensive Plan. The project's gone through Fire and Emergency Services Review and Comment, a process that is already required in place, and for what it's worth, our roads are 30 feet wide. As an age-restricted community, this project does not impact the school system and provides a housing product for underserved portions of our community. All total, we will invest over $40 million in this project to bring housing to active adults in Carroll County. The terms predictability, certainty, and fairness have been discussed by the board. This project has all three. Based upon the above, I request a rejection of the proposed deferral, or alternatively, an exemption of the submitted plans and process for any adopted deferral. Thank you.
Hi, Jason, Jason Van Kirk, Elm Street Development. We're land developers for over 10 years here in Carroll County, have done several very nice developments in the county. We all want predictability and fairness from our government in planning and zoning. I encourage the Commission to analyze the existing applications carefully. Real estate professionals have spent years and many dollars following the master plan and planning and zoning rules in good faith. It is fair and just that applicants at the entitlement finish line should be allowed to finish processing under the existing rules. I strongly encourage you to carefully analyze each deferral independently, as well as each project in the pipeline independently as well, and apply grandfathering appropriately. Carroll County should stand for predictability and fairness. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mike McCann. Current address is 10272 Baltimore National Pike, Ellicott City, Maryland. I am not currently a Carroll County resident, but I've lived in the county for over 10 years, and my various businesses have operated in Carroll County for over 30. I'll say, fortunately or unfortunately for me, a lot of those businesses are related to real estate. We provide engineering, surveying services, real estate brokerage in another firm. Long story short, I recognize that real estate can be emotional. It's folks' homes, it's their life's investment, and every bit of what you heard tonight is very important to consider, and I know you will. I do not envy the position you're in. But I wanted to bring up a few things. I've heard in prior public meetings, there have been compliments given by this Board of Commissioners to a variety of the developers for doing the right thing and standing up and doing what's right. And I've heard commitments by many of you to putting in whatever time it takes to resolve these issues in the durations that are described in the ordinances. But I think it's been a little misdirected. And what I mean by that is there has been constant talk of collaboration, but there hasn't been any. I do think, and I echo the sentiments from a person earlier that says, you know, what have we done the last 6 weeks? Many of the developers from these impacted projects have said they are willing to sit down and talk to constituents, you know, homeowners, to this board, and to figure out a way around these issues, because what we've heard to date, and again, I'll say public meetings, we've heard about doorknobs and light switches, and we've even gotten somewhat of a commitment tonight to follow a standard that's not even the Carroll County standard, because folks want to do what's right. I've heard and completely understand a lot of the perspectives of residents of the county where they talk about stormwater management. The fire chief talked about roads. Those are things I think could be resolved. And I think some of it is a little bit of an education too. There was a reference to Ellicott City. Unfortunately, I know that area very well, and the floods that occurred there. The projects that have been approved in this county since before 2018 are subject to a standard for stormwater management that is not part of the problem. The issue with Ellicott City and many places that have developed over the last 40 or 50 years, and the Freedom area is no different, have been a result of the 35-ish years that no stormwater standards existed. So again, I believe that you know, with some collaboration, some education, both sides of the equation here, we could get past this in a different way. There's also reference to text amendments and do they need to be revised? It sounds like the consensus is yes, but it doesn't mean that these projects need to be held up to get what everybody wants. You are facing historical issues right now. Budget shortfalls at the state level that have been numbers we've never even talked about before. What that's going to lead to in school underfunding is a whole nother issue. Schools are clearly an issue to everybody in this room, every stakeholder in the county, constituents, businesses, nonprofits alike. There's other issues too. We talked about affordable housing and housing in general shortages. And I don't think the way to resolve these issues is by enacting a deferral. I implore you to take advantage of the commitments that have been made from the other side and a number of residents in this room tonight to sit down and talk through these issues, find resolution, while the larger, because I think that's the reality, the deferral might be 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, but the enactment of these text amendments, history tells us, is not going to happen in any short time frame. So again, I implore you to take advantage of the opportunity to collaborate with the people that I've heard you respect from what they've done for this county, the money they spend in this county, the time their employees spend volunteering, and find a better way, another way, to achieve everybody's goals. Thank you for your time.
Next speakers are Mark Krebs, Kristen Morinelli, Thomas Pilon, and Sandy Jenkins Blackburn.
Mark Krebs, 1696 Springmount Drive, and for the record, yes, I am the husband of Commissioner Krebs. But actually, I am, if it's okay, I'm going to read Wayne Schuster's, if I can turn this up a little bit. Wayne Schuster was here and could not stay, and now he submitted his comments to Roberta Wyndham, but I thought sent this to me, and I'm going to read them unless somebody objects. Wayne is a 26-year resident of Eldersburg and a professional land use and airport planner for more than 45 years. He was a member of the Carroll County Planning and Zoning Commission from 2003 to 2010 and was on various community groups. And so I quote here from him. The Freedom area needs your help. We have a number of over 55 developments in questionable locations and others that are developing with minimum design standards. There's a gap in cluster subdivision density and design standards that was promised to be addressed at the time of the Freedom Plan adoption, but don't appear to be considered in recent development approvals. We've had a proposed multi-story self-storage facility adjacent to an established residential neighborhood attempt to gain approval without appropriate setback or compatibility considerations. And the Freedom area is experiencing retail vacancies simultaneously with continued commercial center approvals. We need to have a short-term deferral on self-storage facilities, cluster subdivisions, over 55 developments, and mixed-use plan commercial centers so the appropriate development standards can be put in place. It is understood that the board has inherited past board policies, regulations, and capital budget deficits that have led to Freedom area development not matching the visions and goals of the adopted Freedom Plan. The Freedom Plan itself was not bad, but its implementation has not proceeded in a way that supports the community's needs or expectations. And it's doubtful that continuing the current pattern is going to provide the revenue needed to implement a capital program that addresses development-caused facility deficiencies. The request of the temporary deferral is not taken lightly. It is understood that there could be potential impacts to developers, realtors, and other business interests. We need reasonable people on all sides to come together as quickly as possible to develop a consensus for standards that address the issues the community is facing from these developments that help guarantee long-term success for the very developments in question. We need the county to do the work now to implement up-to-date policies and standards that provide better balance between community vision and development rates. We can't continue to be a forgotten child waiting for future attention. We are the county's sole designated growth area. Before we continue with poorly located or substandard developments, we should work together to achieve successful developments and business without sacrificing community visions. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kristen Mornelli. I'm in support of the deferral. Isn't it funny that the only ones opposing the deferral are realtors or a representative of the Building Industry Association and lawyers for the developers? Commissioners, who are you going to listen to? Those who have a financial interest in continuing growth and development, or the citizens who have lived here and wish to enjoy this quality of life that they've been enjoying for years? Someone previously spoke about how many Carroll County people leave to go to work, acting like these developments are going to keep people in, but when you look at the multiple hundred home developments that are in the pipeline, we don't have enough business coming in to say these people aren't leaving the county for their jobs. I hope that made sense. But, and when we're talking about grandfathering in the developments that have already been submitted, you have to realize that these are huge developments that are in the pipeline, and it's only going to exacerbate the issues that we're talking about now. Because once you put in hundreds more homes and you don't increase the infrastructure, the cat's out of the bag, like someone said previously. I mean, there's no way to go back. Infrastructure isn't keeping up with the development in this area. Roads, schools, and emergency and safety are being ignored. The citizens in the Freedom area feel like our concerns aren't heard or considered in these decisions. Our area has grown exponentially since being declared a designated growth area. If this had been responsibly planned, our schools wouldn't be overcrowded, over capacity. They would be modern. We wouldn't have rats at Liberty. That would be awesome. Our roadways would be safer, and our emergency services would be able to provide what we need. Appropriate impact fees aren't being charged to developers. The result of this means the current residents and our kids are paying the price. We're paying in tax dollars, our kids are paying with substandard schools. New homes provide a tax base, but it's a wash because of the services that need to be provided to the new homes. How much growth is actually going to be enough? We are a growth area, we have grown so much, but the infrastructure is not being supported for the needs that we have with all the development. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Pilon. I'm Executive Vice President, Development for St. John Properties, 2560 Lower Baltimore Drive. We are the owners of 4 properties collectively known as the Beatty property. We've been working on that development, processing 4 separate development plans for that site since 2021. While we were under contract to purchase the property was rezoned. And it was the text amendments that have been referred to tonight as it relates to residential were put in place. So we were paying close attention to what was going on as that was happening. And then we subsequently developed a site plan for each of the 4 sites, and I use that term generically, site plan, but development plan for each of the 4 sites. We have met with the county, we've met with the communities, we've done that multiple times along the way as we've been doing that over the last 4 years. We have prepared a comprehensive master plan for our development. It has been substantially unchanged since we initially submitted that plan in 2022, early 2022. We prepared a comprehensive traffic study. We have prepared and had approved our mitigation proposal for traffic. We've designed stormwater management for the site that manages the 100-year storm to address any concerns of flooding. We've worked cooperatively with the county to implement the design of the extension of Georgetown Boulevard, a master plan road. And we've done all these things in close conversation with the county. We've been in front of the commission various times as various text amendments have been proposed for various things. And my point to all that is that we've been very engaged, and we have relied on the code as it was put forward to us. And we've followed all the rules. We submitted a letter earlier today outlining more of the history of the site, and we simply would ask that you do not go forward with the deferral. We believe, as every other time that the county or anyone else had a question or concern about the project, we're here and ready to discuss those things. If you do decide to go forward with the deferral, we'd ask for the purposes of allowing us to continue to work with the county on the project and move it forward, that you exempt projects like ours from the deferral so that we can continue the process. 2 of the 4 projects would be impacted by the proposed deferral and would prevent us, we believe, from being able to sit and have productive conversations with the county staff and or with the commissioners or whoever would be interested in discussing that, because our plans wouldn't be subject to being allowed to move forward through the process. So thank you for your time.
Hi there. My name is Sandy Jenkins Blackburn. I am president-elect of Carroll County Realtors. I want to say one thing as a Carroll County Realtor, and then just a couple other things as a lifetime resident here. I have been to several speakings of the Secretary of Housing, Jay Day, and I am a little scared that if a full-blown deferment would be passed, that maybe the state could come and do something else. That does worry me to take away our hands in it. It just scares me from things that I've heard them say, just taking away that from us. But as a lifelong resident, as well as my father, I am not a part of Freedom, but my family grew up in South Carroll, Taylorsville area. My father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and after that, I think Woodbine. on my father's side of the family. And I just think sometimes, what if they, like, I get what you're saying about future, but, you know, the grandkids, the kids, the grandkids, the great-grandkids, if some more development doesn't happen, you know, we're just going to be stuck. And I get that. But I also want to say about the zoning, I heard on my other side of the family, my mom was a Shipley, so her father, his father, his father. And I do remember my grandfather's property was going to be rezoned 5 years ago, and I was trying to sell it. And I do believe there were several zoning Zoom meetings. So I just heard that a lot tonight, that like things were swept under the rug because of COVID, but I don't remember it that way. And then one other thing I want to say is about an active 55 and older. I have lived here all my life, but you know, things happen, divorces, death, where you have to move. So I have to move now, and there's no affordable housing in anywhere near here, which I would love to stay in Carroll County. I am going to go to Gettysburg, I believe, and to hit a 55 and older, I believe, by Lennar, because 5 years here, they've been trying to get this, you know, for a 5-year process, and I would love to be able to stay in Carroll County, but I can't. Our roads, you know, there are so many people that are moving out of the state, and I just worry about that so much, but anyway, that's it.
Michelle Steele, Michael Anderson, and is there anyone else whose name I did not call that filled out a card? If they could just get in line, please.
Hi, Michelle Steele, 6205 Longmeadow. I back up to the Beatty property. So when we moved here in '99, it was slated for like 32 single-family homes, half-acre lots. Well, obviously the schools are full and they're dilapidated, so what do? They're gonna put in 72 over 55 communities. Well, I emailed Rothstein at the time, and he put me in touch with a Chris Hine, and I asked Chris Hine about a traffic study, which I'm assuming this gentleman's referring to, which is about 6 or 7 years old. And I inquired about the difference of the traffic coming down Longmeadow and on the other side of Rolling View, where there is an easement between my property and Mr. Bloom's property, which is going to be a road that's going to go into this 72 townhome community. And I wanted to know the traffic study. Well, what is that going to say? And he said, well, for example, 34 single-family housing units would be predicted to produce 21 trips leaving the site during peak hours. A 72 senior housing, not over 55, a senior housing, which I guess everybody who's over the age of 55 just sits home and knits and does nothing and goes nowhere, would be predicted to only produce 9 trips leaving the site during peak hours. So I don't know about you guys, I'm 52. I have a husband who works, I work out of the home. I have 3 grown children who live with me who also work out of the home. That's 5 cars a day times 2 trips a day, right? Well, that's 72 cars. How many 55 people don't work anymore? Like, I can't afford to retire right now in this economy. So, you know, most people, 55, I think the average retirement age, according to Google machine, is 64. So tell me how the 72 homes are only going to have 9 cars a day going out during peak hours when people over 55 are still working. And their children who can't afford to move to live without them are also working or going to school. So I disagree. I don't know how. I think a new traffic study needs to be done. You've got 252 homes on the other side of Beatty, and they're saying that people are, well, they're not going to use Longmeadow and Rolling View to come into the neighborhood. Well, then why are we putting an easement for people to come in and out of the neighborhood down Longmeadow. There's no sidewalks, the streets are narrow, Oklahoma Road kids walk. What about safety? When my daughter has to park on the street because I don't have enough room in my driveway for 5 cars, a trash truck can barely get by. So tell me how the fire trucks and the ambulance and the ladder trucks are going to get by to get over to the over 55 community. So thank you for putting this together, Ms. Krebs. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Michael Anderson. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. So I live on Freedom Avenue. I have one of the properties, the JPB Piney Ridge. Again, the zoning needs to be looked at because when I first moved in there, that was zoned for a gas station commercial. At one point in time, it was going to be a seafood restaurant and a bar. One thing they didn't mention is that what is close to that property is Piney Ridge Elementary School. So, the zoning didn't make sense to put something like that in the middle of a residential. JPB also mentioned, in the beginning, they were going to put a 3 or 4 story building there, and it would have towered over everything in that neighborhood. So they have since downsized, and they're at 31 units now. And we have had multiple meetings with them to discuss the layout, driveways, everything like that. And some changes were implemented, but still others, due to money, due to whatever, are not going to be implemented. And as a resident, that affects us when they're long gone. So our concerns do need to be addressed in that building, because once the developers are gone, they're gone. Whether they live in the area or not, the residents around that area are going to be affected for decades. One thing about Sykesville-Eldersburg, it's a great little community, but it has expanded so much. So whatever was thought about or planned years ago always needs to be fluid and keep up with today's growth. 40 years ago, I lived in Harrisburg. I knew people in Harrisburg that traveled down to DC for their job. So Eldersburg is just another pass-through community. What really makes it tough is you got 26 and 32. Those are our main entrances and exits out of the city, and they are overloaded during traffic hours. You can go from the reservoir to 97 and be stuck in traffic. And, the planning really needs to be looked at, the zoning, the amount of people we're allowing into this county, because years down the road, it's not getting better. So we need to take the time to take a breath and take a look and say, okay, is what we're doing good for this community? Thank you.
My name is Mike Giovanangelo. I live around the corner off of Oklahoma. And I talked to someone from the zoning office a couple years ago when a lot of the stuff going through the Beatty property and all these properties over here, a couple hundred homes being put in. I asked about the studies being done for traffic and how they account for the hypothetical traffic of one property when they build another hypothetical property, and you can't study what didn't happen yet, right? So we're saying we're gonna have the impact of this 120 homes, and we're building another 72 next to it, and you're going hypothetical off of a hypothetical. And the person I talked to told me, well, you don't have to account for something unbuilt. So none of the other properties actually exist, so they don't have to be accounted for in any traffic study. Until it's built, it's not something to be considered, which seems like a massive oversight, because within 1 mile of here, in a half-mile square area, they're building over 300 homes. But since none of them exist yet, none of them have to be accounted for. Now, this is what the person on the phone told me from the zoning office. I don't know how accurate they were. They checked with their supervisor and called me back. I assume they're correct, but this seems worth looking into. If you can, in 2026, all of these homes are being built over by Beatty, and none of them account for anything else being done. So that just seems worth looking into to me, that we're not basing everything off hypothetical and actual numbers of traffic. So, thank you.
Mr. President, we have no more comment cards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burke. I want to wrap up this evening by saying thank you to everybody who came out tonight. Thank you for having the courage to speak. Thank you for taking time out of your lives to come and help us to better understand the situation down here. I know that myself and my colleagues will certainly take everything we've heard tonight into consideration as we move into our next steps. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned.